So let's go from leg to leg, but enough to sort of just pick the foot up a little bit. Yeah. So remember, the way we step, we sink to release the foot. Yeah. This is one of the most important things. Yeah. And it doesn't matter if you lean over. You can worry about the vertical later. Just want to get this bing. Just feel how the energy changes when you lift the foot. Suddenly you have spirit. Wow. Like a little switch. Yeah. So you just want to feel that outside edge of the foot, but really of the whole body. And you just lean into it like it's a wall that you can lean on, so that you're not fearfully coming into the inside of the foot because you're worried about your balance. Yeah. So this is basically what the sumo leg stamping is all about. So 1, 2. Just put the foot down very gently. So toes first, and then slowly lower the heel. If you watch the sumo, you see the way they do it. It's almost more intimidating to the other person when they place the foot down very gently. It's like they're demonstrating their control. So it's this feeling of leaning, this feeling that I'm nestling into this sort of surface here. This is what we want at the moment. So it just gives you a very good sense of the Danchen, because it's basically the middle of the circle, not just the circle on this plane, but the circle on this plane. Yeah. So you can really feel when it relative to your movement, it really is the center. And the head moves, and the Danchen tries to pretty much remain stable and still. Yeah, so just feel what's happening to the Danchen. It should be sort of tightening, becoming strong, and sort of pushing back. So your lower back is curving back a little bit. So this is the feeling of the Danchen being strong. When the Danchen is strong, it's pulling into itself. It's not flopping out like a beer belly. It has a strong internal gravitational, almost collapse into itself. And now just standing in riding horse and just feel that. So the legs should feel really like you're on a big horse, you know, a wide horse. Just feel the danchen. It's pulling in, and it's like your lower back is curved. Feels like it's curved like this. Yeah. So there's a sense of the world being drawn into your danchen. Just feel it. It should. The danchen wants to go down. So the earth is pulling it. It's interesting that our word gravity is related to heaviness, yeah? Whereas like in Hebrew, their word translates as the force of attraction, yeah? And so it's this feeling that things are sort of coming together rather than simply being heavy, yeah? So my danchen is being pulled down to the earth. And then just feel this, what they call the urogenital diaphragm. So this sort of bowl here that holds the danchen and stops it from just falling straight out through your body. So that needs to be strong and resilient. And to feel it, you just need to relax all across the sacrum and in the hip joints. So that it's not the tension that you're holding in the joints that's holding you together. It's the fabric of your lower diaphragm. Okay, and now let's just bounce it. So just a little bit of a spring in the legs, yeah? So just relax the curvature of the back a little bit. So stop pulling the belly in so much. Otherwise, you won't be able to come over the foot properly. Feel the outside edges of the leg, of the feet. Feel the heel, but also feel the front of the foot. Yeah. So bang, bang. Feel the perineum underneath. So that the perineum needs to be just a little bit tight. And that's like just a sort of bloody mindedness, really. So that's something at the back of your mind just is ready for danger. So there's a little bit of tension, grip in the perineum. Good. Okay, now let's just bring it back to riding horse. So the ego is like a sort of, it's like a place of petulance, yeah? So it's self-promoting and it tends to sort of go against things. It tends to go against what it feels as pressure upon itself, yeah? So that's what prevents us from actually harmonizing with our environment and becoming more balanced, yeah? So the reason we get tense all around here is because we don't like that pull of gravity. So we just lock it out. Instead of harmonizing with it, we just clench and pretend it's not there. You know, so we just want to really just relax this whole area and just feel this being drawn down. And it's like it's hanging on like an elastic thread. So it's like a ball hanging on elastic. It can stretch, yeah? It's got that pliability. And now just feel the heart center. Yeah? So that has a sense of, in relation to the world, you are actually relaxing back from it. Yeah. So you're almost sort of retreating. So there's this sense that you, the you that is within your body, is actually relaxing back. It feels like if you just let go, and close your eyes, you'd fall backwards. You can just imagine like a really soft mattress behind you, so you don't have to worry about hurting yourself. So there's this real sense that that inner part, it's like an inner child, like this sort of crybaby child that just wants its mother's arms, yeah? And it's just receding back. And then your body is the mother. Your body is the yin aspect of you, and your spirit is the yang aspect. And it's your body that contains that. So your body has to balance that natural inclination of this frightened child to retreat, and that's the arms reaching forwards. Yeah, you can feel it best when you're walking. Yeah. So when you're walking, you are actually going backwards, but your body is taking you forwards. Yeah. So that sense, yeah, rather than being driven forwards by this eager, anxious mind, your mind is just relaxing back and back and back, and your body is ambulating forwards. I think there's a Jewish holiday here because they're all, the synagogue, which is just down there, was jam-packed last night. I can hear drums. The natives are revolting. Okay. So this real sense of receding that has to be balanced by a real sense of reaching with the arms. Yeah. And the same thing here. So this is being pulled down by the earth, and your legs are having to hold that, having to push up against it. Yeah. So what we don't want is to use the body to produce static states. Yeah. So, normally we would just lock the legs at a certain point and say, okay, this is where I am. Yeah. But we want to feel the belly being drawn down, the dantian. And the thrust upwards has to be a continuous streaming that doesn't just lock out, the same as this one here. Otherwise, there's no energy, there's only force. Yeah? And to sort of maintain that openness where the streaming can continue is actually very difficult. That's what requires the quiet mind. As soon as your mind wanders, you're blocked out, you become stiff. As John would say, you've become a turd. Yeah. One of his favorite words. Okay, so let's just turn it now. Yeah, and just feel as soon as we start turning, we introduce another two forces. So the centrifugal, your body being thrown out, and this centripetal, your mind wanting to settle into the still center. This is why the mind has to be really quiet, otherwise it will not search for stillness. Yeah? And then the body won't be able to be thrown out either. Yeah? So just feel those two. The arms are being thrown out. Your flesh is loose on your face. It's being thrown away from the bone. And inside, there's a quiet, ruthless stillness in your dantian, or the min-meng. So the dantian, min-meng, it's all part of the one thing. Yeah? And just let the eyes go with it. Yeah. See, we want the eyes to be an aspect of the heart rather than tools of the rational mind. So the rational mind will use the eyes to investigate, inspect, and then it can judge and criticize. When they're of the heart, then when the eyes look, they touch compassionately. And they're never aggressive. So when you look at something, in sort of an intent way, that thing actually feels it. There's pressure. So when the eyes are from the heart, they're relaxing back all the time, almost like they're relaxing into here. And then the world comes to you. You only see what you're meant to see. You're not greedy, avaricious. Yeah, so anything that we do, we can do externally or we can do internally. So externally, we'd be going through the motions and we'd be thinking about something else and we'd be careless and stupid, basically. Whereas when you're attending to the internal, you're just relaxing, quietening the mind and just observing in a very gentle, compassionate way to see where in the heart it's all being generated. So this is the function of practice is to take you into the internal. Yeah. So you're repeating something over and over, day in, day out. And if it didn't take you into the internal, you'd just become bored or stupid or both. So, with practice, you have to find deeper and deeper levels just to keep yourself going, just to keep the practice going. So for me, this one, you can really feel the full and empty. Yeah, so I'm filling this leg, and this leg is really having to let go to stop it holding me back. Yeah, and so it's becoming empty, but empty in the sense of expanding into light. So the full side is becoming dark and heavy and compressed. And the empty side is light in the sense of not heavy, and also in the sense of not dark and expansive. So this is heavy and this is radiant. This is coming out from a center. This is coming into a center. So just really trying to you're not producing it. You're just relaxing so that you can see it. And just always coming back to the heart, because it's there that we hold on. Yeah. So to release this joint, something here has to release. It's not just a simple physical thing. Okay, now let's just bring it back into riding horse. So now we have that third component. So we've got the Dan Chen coming down and me having to stream up to balance that. I've got my heart receding and my body compassionately reaching forwards to stop myself from falling over. And then we've got this swirling, this sense of something expanding and a sense of something contracting into a center. Yeah. Okay, so now let's just breathe with it. So bring in another component, which is the breath. So breathing in and breathing out. In. Okay, now to make the breath easier to feel, we have to make it more difficult to do. So just breathe through that small hole. So make a small hole with your mouth, breathe out, and then breathe in. So you want to feel it switching from the diaphragm here. So the diaphragm pulling down, that's like an internal tension inside the abdomen. And then here the belly pulling in to help push the diaphragm up. So here. So the smaller you make that hole, the more you have to pull and push here to get the air to come in and out. So the easier it is to feel the muscles. So when I breathe in, the belly tightens, but you can feel the diaphragm inside just pulling down. And then when you breathe out, then the belly muscles are tightening, but they're also pulling in to squeeze the diaphragm up. Get rid of the air, and then again. So this is why, cardiovascular work is so important. So not just walking, but running, really getting out of breath. So you're really working for the oxygen. So this is just simulating the stress involved with that. But also singing. I think this is why the Buddhists do all the chanting they do. Yeah. So if you were like just to hum a long note, so to really keep that going, there comes a point where you really start pulling these muscles in to get the last few seconds. Okay, so let's. Yeah, so in Nitzan's classes, he'd always stress, what we're studying is not energy, but connection. Yeah. And connection is attention. When two things are connected, they're joined, and there's always part of them that's wanting to separate. Yeah. So you have this sort of elastic tension when you have connection. So we're relaxing into the tension, if you like. into the correct tension. So the value of having the little hole here is that it forces you to really attend to that point where the out-breath becomes the in-breath, and when the in-breath becomes the out-breath. Those two places where there's often a disconnection get joined up. And that requires a sort of a tone in the muscles, which we generally have lost. So the problems with our bodies is that they're basically flabby, yeah? Especially as we get older. So they lack that tonus. So we just have to produce it. We just have to work at it. Okay. And now let's just try this second warm-up exercise, just the one where we come into the back foot. And just feel that sinking into the back foot. And again, it's got this feeling that I'm leaning on something, like I'm leaning back on a wall. And that, as I lean back into it, it's produced, you know, so that wall comes up and comes out, yeah. So this hand that's coming around like this is just tracing the extent of that wall that's sort of, and then what's inside my space can be very soft and tender. It's like a skin, you know, skin or a boundary, a distinct boundary. So, and what I want is for that to be as far back as I can get it. And then that foot will naturally just come up. You know? So if I can really sink back, then this foot will just lift off the ground. And then, ooh. Yeah, so this hand here, it's as though it's reaching down to the heel and just bringing up this skin from the ground that I can just relax back into, like an elastic skin. And then it's sort of springy, it's got this sort of buoyancy to it. And this is all the way through the form. So every time you come into a foot in the form, you're basically leaning into a skin of some sort, even when it's the front foot. Yeah? So this is sort of back energy, the energy of your back. And that comes down into the arms. So your arms are much more of your back than they are of your front, or we want them to be. So the arms belong to the back of the heart. They don't belong to the head. So tense shoulders is just the head trying to claim the arms. Yep. So I turn and you can feel how different the arms feel. This is of the back and is coming round, and this is much lighter, this arm that's from the opposite side. So even though you're basically symmetrical here, it feels very, very different. So this arm is of my fullness and this arm is of my emptiness, yeah? And when you're concentrating on the emptiness, you can't see the, and when you're concentrating on the fullness, you can't see the emptiness. The emptiness is invisible. That's the way it should be. But you want to acknowledge that there is emptiness there. So you leave space for it, but you don't interfere. So I'm with this leg, this arm, like I'm putting my arm around a girl, you know, just drawing her into myself. And this is empty, this is dark, I can't see it. It's full of its own light, but it's not available to me. So this is where I am, I'm here. Yeah. Yeah, so until we're quiet enough inside to see the light of energy, it's best just to not interfere with it and just be with the fullness. Yeah. Yes, so I'm wanting to fall back into this containing skin, and my arm is holding me up almost. Yeah. So I'm being taken in this direction, and so there has to be something here to balance that. But it's not of my normal self. It's, it's bright and light and really, really active. And so it's similar to the sort of, the sumo exercise we did to start with, but we're just turning with it. So you could equally just lift this foot up. Yeah. So here, really filling this side. Relaxing into fullness, the same way you relax into emptiness, but they're so different. Okay, so let's just bring it back. Again, as I sink into the leg, it's almost like it squeezes this from my sacrum, from my shoulder. It squeezes this sort of skin that comes out that I can just sort of almost fall into. Yeah, so each ward off is that really. It's just my pressure on the heel that's squeezing this structure out from the side, from the back and around. I just nestle into, I can really relax into it because it's a container. Okay, so now let's just try just a little bit of ward off left because it's basic. That's what we've just been doing basically. Yeah. So as I turn into this foot, yeah. So as I turn into the foot, the pressure I'm putting on the foot is causing this emanation from my back and around, and my bottom hand is just an expression of that. So the hand comes round. Ward off left when we do this, we're just doing that bit, holding the ball, yeah? So as I turn, my fullness is expanding and producing the bottom arm. Yeah, and I just really want to just relax in that direction in order to get this here, yeah? So it really has to expand out of the shoulder, the same way that ward off does when we do this with the figure of 8. So I'm turning and this is expanding, and this arm is just going woo. Yeah. So this is empty. Yeah. So it's emptying. So this is just comes up and around, and it will just drift out along its own trajectory. So it can't go any further back than this, and it will tend to come round. You don't have to do this. You don't need to turn back. You just do the one turn and just really feel it. This whole side is full and this whole side is empty. It's floating away almost, yeah? Okay, now let's try the other side. So just sinking. Yeah. So the top hand just sort of floats up because it's part of the lightness. It's part of the levity of the rising lightness. And this hand is just naturally underneath because it's part of my heavy full side. And then the other side, so I'll just sink. So your two hands really represent the yin and the yang. So the heavy yin that wants to sink into the earth and the light yang that wants to rise up to the heavens. Yeah. And that will lend the heart an expansive sense of almost being suspended, almost hovering between these two poles. And then the other side. So one. That's it. So this is the heart, the ball that you're holding. It's really just, you know, your two hands represent the two different polarities, yeah. And then something is produced in this space. It's not just a current that passes between them. It's like a spherical space within which something can be produced, yeah. Wow. So I've got to feel this sense of leaning in this direction. It will always tend to bring me back into the middle. So I've really, your relaxation is always an expansion. It's always taking you away from a center. And then here, so this goes out and then around, and this just floats up and over. And your heart is contained in this sphere that you're holding. Wow. So I am falling backwards, and it's this full side of my body that's just holding me and stopping me from falling. So you really have to feel the difference between you, the contained, and the body, the container. The body is not you. You are contained by the body. And just feel how your arms really have to be round and away from your body. If it's any sort of collapse in the elbows, then this sphere that you're holding is pressed and damaged. You know, so you need to keep the elbows away from this sphere. And then the heart can really expand into its true space. Yeah. And one. So this is just roundness, the principle of roundness. So John, he once said to me, whenever I get bored with the Tai Chi, I just come back to softness and roundness, and then my interest is rekindled. Yeah. That's it. So you want to feel that the reason it's round is because something that you're holding is trying to expand outwards. So you're containing this energy that's trying to escape. Okay, so let's just bring it back to riding horse. And now let's just try figure of eighting to get into ward off. Now the way we'll do this is really important. So, because when we just bring the ward off up like this, it ignores the spine. You have to pass through the spine. So the constriction in the figure of eight is your waist really, but it's really the tightening, the natural tightening around your spine. So there's all these muscles that hold the spine, stop it from bending too much. Yeah. So here there's a constriction, and then at the shoulders, imagine a bodybuilder, yeah? Got these amazing flared legs, this amazing set of shoulders, and this really tight waist. I mean, a lot of them have got like 60-inch chest and a 28-inch waist. Yeah. So there's like a real constriction here, and that's just the middle of the figure of eight. And so I come up, there's this tightness here, and then at the shoulder, it just loosens and opens. And then up, tightness in the middle, and then, ooh, it's almost like something just falls out of me. So 1, 2, and 1, 2. That's it. Yeah, so this is what's happening inside the ball that we created. Yeah? So there's like a figure of eight inside that ball, like an hourglass. The egg timer. This sort of three-dimensional figure of eight. And now just getting into riding horse. Yeah, so the figure of 8 is just, you can think of it as like 2 circles, one on top of the other, or if it's 3-dimensional, 2 balls on top of one another. So if it's 2-dimensional, then each of those circles also contains its figure of 8. Yeah. And then each of those figures of 8 contains a little figure of 8, and it's infinite. Yeah. So there's always that sense that, you know, no matter how contained and together you are, there's always another somewhere else that's contained by a much bigger. So you're just 1/2. Your figure of 8 is just 1/2 of a bigger figure of 8. So there's always that sense that whatever you're doing, there's something else happening on some other plane, some other dimension that is complementary to what you are and what you are about. Yeah. Okay, let's just come back to what we've tried to look at. So the Dan Chen, just pulling down, my own legs just streaming up through that. Yeah. So when they relax, then basically the forces become infinite. It's like this is like a vector that's just flowing down like a straight line with an arrow. You know, so there's an arrow pointing to the center of the earth. And this coming up from me is very sinuous and snaky. Yeah. And they're balancing in order to produce this image of stillness, which isn't really still because they're quite different. This straight line is quite different than this curvature coming up through my body. So there's always going to be a bit of a shimmer and a wobble. Yeah. And then feel the you, the frightened you that just wants the mother, sinking back, and then the arms of the mother, your own body, reaching forwards. And associated with that is this sense of the eyes just relaxing. So it's like you're with the back of the eyeball. You're with the retina, really, which you can sense here, like in the back of, you know, they talk about eyes in the back of the head. And then this sense of swirling, you're always really ready to just start turning because you're already turning. There's already this elastic backward and forward, which is throwing your mass outwards and gathering your mind inwards. And then there's the breathing. There's this expansive bellows. Yeah? So the muscles here, the diaphragm that pulls down to suck the air in, and the belly that pushes the diaphragm up. Yeah? And then the full and the empty. As I sink into one leg, I get this big wing, this chunky wing that comes out, and I can nestle into it. Yeah? So I'm producing these structures with my weight, with my single weightedness. As I sink into one side, there's a real strength, and the other side, there's just nothing. Of course, it's not nothing, but you daren't look at it because you'll turn it into something, and then it won't belong there, it'll belong here. And this is always the sense that the more you investigate it, the more you reveal and bring clarity to what's there. It's almost like you're producing emptiness. Yeah? You're filling the full space and allowing more and more emptiness to express itself in the empty side. It's what John used to call the internal of the internal. Yeah? Because as soon as you look at the internal and investigate it, it becomes external, it becomes known. Yeah? But that is a process which is generative of more and deeper internal. Okay, so now let's just bring it back to attention. Yeah, so just feel the legs. The tendency when we come back to a relatively straight leg posture is to just bring too much force into the legs and to prop yourself up like on a platform. Just let the legs give a little bit. So there is a sense of your dantian still pulling elastically through the legs and the legs having to produce this endless, infinite stream of energy to hold that. Okay, great.